So today we are going to touch a very sensitive matter. It's the most important factor for the failure, but also for the success of the project. It's communication. And just before we start, I want to say that the PDUs will be shared, and also the video link for YouTube will be shared in a separate email that will come in the coming days. So the floor is yours, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Kostas and Lazare and everybody for being here. And Kostas was right. The reason why I'm always happy to talk to groups like yours, project managers, leadership teams, anybody in the business world, is because I actually feel that very often we're getting in our own way by not speaking up when we see problems, or not speaking up well. So it is something which I've observed in my 20 years now of corporate experience, and it is something which actually can be solved. So what I'm sharing today with you is a little glimpse into a longer training. The training is called Crucial Conversations for Mastering Dialogue. And the company who has developed the training, they sit in America. They created a really good study some years back for different industries. The company is called Crucial Learning, and one of their studies was exactly about project management. They said, and we know that out of our own experience, that so many projects fail or do not deliver on the scope which they promised, nor on the budget or the timelines. And one of the main reasons is silence. Silence to speak up when we see a problem with priorities. Silence to speak up when we see people not delivering us the resources or the support we need. Silence to speak up when one of our project sponsors is not doing their job. Because as project managers, and I worked as a project manager myself in GE using the Six Sigma methodology, we are not the one who have the power over all the resources. It's usually business people. And holding the sponsor of the project accountable is something which way too often we don't do. So there's many situations where we all know what is going wrong, yet we don't talk it out. And it actually goes beyond project management. It goes into our day-to-day business life. It goes even into our families. Sometimes we kind of think, let's not pick that battle, let's be quiet and so on. The thing is, not discussing problems doesn't solve anything. So with that, I actually would like a very quick, I would like to share a little bit of that training. Let me just see if I can share my screen here. Oh, and you can at any time in either the chat function ask a question, and Kostas and Lazare will monitor it. And you can speak up and raise your hand and ask me a question. I don't mind at all. In the contrary, I actually like it because that tells me you guys are not asleep. You are interacting. So if I don't see it because I'm concentrated on the presentation, please interrupt me with a hand sign or just speak up, any of you, okay? Okay. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. You should see my screen here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If not, break it up. Good. Yeah. So Crucial Conversations for Mastering Dialogue is the training I'm talking about, and it's actually a fairly big training. However, I'm just going to give you a glimpse into it, but happy to point you in the right direction afterwards if you have more questions. And we're starting with getting unstuck. And there I straight away have a question to all of you. So, and then you can put it in the chat function, or you can actually just raise your hand. So all of you, when is the last time you had a tough discussion and you messed it up? So please raise your hands and tell me, was it today? And all of those who actually had it, please raise your hands. If it was this week, please raise your hands now. And it can be the virtual hands or it can be any other hands, you know, like this, you can share your screen and raise your hands. If it's been this month, please raise your hands now. And if you tell me I've never messed up any difficult conversation, you're a dialogue master, I definitely want to see that. Please raise your hands and give me your name. Anyone? Okay. I'm not hearing a voice and I can't see you. That is because I'm sharing my screen. So you have to speak up if you're a dialogue master.
I see some hands up, but maybe it's from a previous question.
Anyone who's really good in dialogue, and there are people out there who are really good in dialogue, I definitely want to hear from you. So feel free to speak up. Nobody? Okay. And just so I get to know you a little bit, and I need Costas to read it then to me, I do want to know where you all dial in from. I hope it's not just all Athens, but some of the beautiful islands and some of the beautiful other cities you have in Greece. So if you could share in the chat function where you dial in from, I would definitely appreciate to know that too. And Costas, if you could read some of those, that would be nice because I can't see the chat function.
Yes, definitely. We have Ioannis from Wales, from Doha, Spiros, Kalamos, Katerini, Athens. Oh, many people from Athens.
Of course, but Doha and Wales, I mean, like, that is the Greek for you. You find them everywhere in the world. I mean, like, you must be one of the most traveled people. And I think that it goes back all the way to the Argonauts, if I can pronounce that correctly. Just always exploring. Okay.
Yeah, we have mainly Athens. It's
the dominant one. Cool.
Yeah,
okay.
And Paros. Yeah, an island.
Ooh. Nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that with me. I really like knowing more or less who I talk to and where you're based. That gives me at least a glimpse. But let's go back to the content now. So from the whole crucial conversation, the very first thing for us to find out is actually getting unstuck. And it starts with spotting the crucial conversations that are keeping us from what we want. And I'd like to share a video here. I hope it's not lagging too much for you when I'm sharing it. I'm going to share it and then I'm going to see you at the end of the video and we're going to talk a bit more about it.
So, I am really excited to have you and your team digging on this project.
Well, thanks. We're excited too.
Let's talk timelines.
Yes. So we looked it over and we think we can get everything done in just a little over 6 months.
Okay. When I worked it out, it seemed like we should be able to finish this by the end of the quarter.
Oh, wow. I'm glad you brought that up because that's like half the usual time for a project like this.
Yeah, but that's why you're in this role. You have an ability to make the impossible happen.
Thanks, Kim. But yeah, we went over all of the individual tasks and there is no way to get that done in 3 months.
Okay, let me give you some more context here. Other product launches are at stake. I've already said we can do it by then, and the accelerated schedules are in the master plan.
Wait, so you've already made a commitment to the leadership team without consulting me about whether this is feasible?
You know we need a big win this year, and there's a lot of pressure on us. Look, when I went to bat for you to get this position, do you know what I said? I said, you're the best person for this job. I said you could get things done in tight timelines.
So what I really would like to know now from all of you is who of you, and feel free to raise your hands, or when you share your video, just raise your hands like that, and otherwise raise your hands with that little icon. So who of you has been in such a situation or in a similar situation before? I don't know. Yeah. Some people. More people popping up. Friendly, I would have been amazed if you haven't, because that is probably one of the most typical situations which I have found in my time. Either tight lines which are unrealistic, or budget, or scope. That's the other one, which I always feel, oh my God, you know, that's unrealistic. Yet, and I'd like to see hands if you have spoken up about it. Have you discussed it honestly? And on top of it, have you gotten your way? Can I see hands first? Who has spoken up when you've been in such a situation? One person has their hands up, 2, 3. Good, very good. That's already very helpful. Super. Okay, so who of you has gotten the desired result? Who of you have then gotten, after you spoke up, the delay, the longer timeline or the more resources? Can I see the hands now? Still 2? Not you. I get that. Okay. It's already good that you spoke up. That's already excellent. So kudos for you, because again, otherwise you're going to sit with impossible deadlines and it's not going to help you nor your team. But sometimes even when we speak up, we don't get what we need. So it's only partially helpful. So let me go back here and share the rest. So in this training, we're calling this a crucial conversation. And the elements of a crucial conversations are high stakes. So project launch, our career, relationship with our manager, etc. It's opposing opinions. For example, one wants a fast deadline, one wants a longer deadline, or one wants to do the stuff, the other one doesn't want to do the stuff, you know. So all of these kind of things can happen. And then emotions come into play. And when I'm saying strong emotions, that doesn't mean that we are yelling at each other, or that we are crying, or that we're having a temper tantrum. But inside, because it's a professional space, we still feel strong emotions. Emotion like anxiety, like fear, like anger, like frustration, all of these. So that is what we are calling a crucial conversation. And the reality is that anytime we find ourselves stuck, there's most likely such a conversation we're either not holding or we're not holding it well. And the problem is indeed that when it really, really matters, we again either don't hold it or we don't hold it well. So what we need to start with is we need to learn to identify first and then hold the crucial conversation. Today, we're just talking about identify, not so much about holding. However, so let me share that system here. So we're going to be here in this model. Before we even have the crucial conversation, we need to get unstuck. And then, of course, we need to learn how we convey our meaning clearly and in a safe way. And we need to let the other party contribute their meaning as well, because dialogue is always a two-way street. Dialogue is not us telling. Dialogue is us telling and us seeking the input from the other perspective. And then, of course, moving to action. But as I said, we're going to stick to, sorry, here we go. We're going to stick to getting unstuck. And let me ask you, Costa, how was the video just before? Was it okay?
Yes, it was, for me, it was fine. And I think for most of the people.
Okay, then I'm going to share another video here because this is a good video to explain what it takes to hold crucial conversations effectively. So let me share that with you.
Anytime you find yourself stuck, there are crucial conversations keeping you there. Our focus in this training won't be on communication for communication's sake. It will be on results, your results. And what tends to keep us stuck and keep us from producing results in our lives, in our organizations, and in our relationships are conversations we're either not holding or not holding very well. Let's take a look at a real life example. Kevin just stepped into a meeting with a very senior leader in his organization. The group is meeting to make a strategic decision that will impact the direction of the entire organization. Two of Kevin's colleagues present their proposals for the options that they were asked to research, and as expected, their points are greeted with penetrating questions from the whole team. Then Chris, the senior leader in the room, pitches his preference, one that's pretty unpopular and potentially disastrous. However, as people try to disagree or push back, Chris becomes slightly defensive. First, he raises an eyebrow, then he raises a finger. Finally, he raises his voice just a little. And it's not long before the discussion shifts from, is this a good idea, to when should we implement your ingenious plan? In spite of the fact that the team has significant reservations, when we began our research, our burning question was this: are there a handful of moments that disproportionately affect things like organizational performance, team performance, and even a relationship success? And if so, what are those moments? We found that we could predict whether a person would achieve amazing results or not simply by watching them during just a few moments a day. Those moments when conversations turn crucial. And that's what brought us to study Kevin, sitting in this high-stakes meeting. When it seemed like everyone was shutting down and letting the senior leader have their way, Kevin spoke up.
Chris, can I check something with you real quick?
Everyone in the room stopped breathing, but Kevin continued on.
You said at the beginning of the conversation that you wanted all of us to be open and candid and, really push against the decision. Is that what you want?
Absolutely, that is what I want.
So I've been listening to the conversation for the past couple minutes, and when we opposed the view that you preferred, that you immediately answered back. And I've watched the group, and people are pushing back a little less hard than they were before. And I feel like the candor in the room has not been the same as it was a few minutes ago. I'm just concerned that this is where we're heading, and I want to know if this is what you want.
Chris went quiet for a moment. Then he nodded his head.
You're right. That's exactly what's been happening. And it isn't what I really want.
Did you see what Kevin did here? When it mattered most, he found a way to be both candid and respectful. He was able to speak truth to power in a way that not only helped him, but it helped the entire team. The skills that Kevin used to handle this moment actually strengthened his trust and relationship with Chris. At the center of crucial conversations like the one we just watched, is a pool of shared meaning. See, the goal of a conversation should be to fill that pool with as much diverse meaning as you can. Because when you expand that pool, you'll make better decisions and you'll take more committed action around those decisions. We've taught over 1 million people around the world the skills to effectively hold crucial conversations. Skills that we learned from 10,000 hours and 30 years of observing people just like Kevin. And now it's your turn. As you learn and apply these skills, you'll get unstuck. Your relationships will improve, your teams will strengthen, and your organizational results will profoundly improve. all from handling just a few crucial conversations in a much better way.
Now, let's be very honest here. It's not just a few crucial conversations, and these crucial conversations really, really take courage. But they differentiate you from being a leader, somebody who really wants to change something. And mind you, a leader is not the one with the most hierarchical power. The leader is the one who actually influences change. So with that, I would like actually Lazarus to put you all into rooms of 4, or Costas. And then I want you to discuss with each other for just, is it okay to do it 8 minutes? Because if you have groups of 4.
I think due to the amount of people, the creating rooms now, it's not available for some reason.
Oh, okay. That's too bad.
Yeah. I'm trying to, but it says that there's a trouble creating rooms. So unfortunately,
maybe it's Achilles that needs to do, the organizer has to do it.
no, it's me, the organizer, and I have we tested that before, but now unfortunately it's not working. Not.
That is totally
Yes.
fine. It's the disadvantage is that you can't talk in little groups, which I always like because that's a reflection time, which is helpful. So we will have to use now the chat function and the talking when you turn on your video and share your opinion. And the question which I have is, do you feel that the way Kevin behaved, you know, the speaking up candidly, is that realistic in your working environment? And if no, what would you like to have in place to create this environment, or would you advise? Over to you. Use the chat function or speak up. There is somebody here who raises their hand, so maybe that person can speak up. No? No. So I do see here in the chat function. Okay. Okay, thanks. So it's realistic, but not with this kind of reaction.
Yeah,
what did you mean, Costas?
So mainly, I'm also a person who will speak up, but the reaction from the other people is not, let's say, that polite most of the times as the person in charge there. So basically, when you find the weak point and you want to speak up about it, you get questioned about it depends on the working environment. There are some environments that are a little bit more toxic than other ones.
Okay. Fair point. I actually think that it's a very realistic assessment, because in reality, not all are as evolved as Chris in this example. Oh, and we have an example here from Stasinos. Okay, so practically what you are saying is, when you're younger in your career, or maybe 10 years ago, we didn't have the norms, but because you now have more experience, therefore people listen to you when you bring up these kind of things. Did I understand that or repeat that correctly?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So there are factors there which help. You know, if you have experience, if you're respected amongst your peers, it is easier for you to speak up. What can we take from that? Are there situations where you scan the room and you see that somebody else may want to speak up, but they may be too junior? Are there ways that you could help them speak up or create an environment where their concerns could be heard? Anyone, feel free to comment, either on video or on chat.
Katja, actually, if I may, I would say
Yes.
that, you know, the years of experience is not an irrelevant factor, right? Because at some point, you know, you may feel you may need that you need to speak up, but at this point you don't have a kind of experience what will be the reaction or what will be on your career as a step, right? So I understand the comment of our members saying that, look, over the years this scaled up, it was easier for me, I was more familiar, I actually understood the value of speaking up. And to my mind, you know, I feel that at the end of the day it's a matter of culture, right? Because if I give space to the juniors to speak up, then I create an environment when people can speak, right? So it's not a matter of seniority who can speak up for me. But this is you know, a change in our culture, in a commons culture. So it's not a button you have to press. You need to create, you make people feel easy to speak up and not feel bad about it, right? So it's not about seniority, it's about culture for me.
It's probably about both, and the seniority comes into the culture as well. There's more traditional cultures where only the experienced ones can speak up. But I'm fully with you, and I really like what you said, that all of us, at least, have the responsibility to create an environment for others, even junior people, maybe sometimes especially junior people, to speak up. Why is it important that junior people speak up? Oh, and we have another comment here. So, Theodoros, oh, I can't pronounce the name, it's too long, but thank you for the comment. So you scan for people who have something to say and you address them. Very, very good. Good for you. So that's leadership for you. What you just said and what the other speaker just said as well. So as leaders, and you don't have to be the hierarchical leader, you create space for others. I still see a hand up here. Would that person like to share their opinion? No, it's left over maybe again. Yeah. Cool. Well, in this case, let me just continue here. The reason why I want us to reflect on that situation with Kevin, it's nice to see a video, you know, and to think, oh yeah, that would be ideal. But as we've just heard, we can make that situation ideal. We have a part to play, both in speaking up, but as well in creating the space to speak up. So scanning the room is actually a very good way of expressing it, because scanning the room, you know, looking at people's faces, we see a lot when people are skeptical, when they do an eye roll, when they look down, when they seem distracted or whatever. We figure out when the people are on board or when they're not on board. So let us continue very quickly. So again, here on the model, the goal is actually, it's really important to get as much information into that pool. And the information is not just facts. The information is opinions, is the emotions of the people when they are happy about it or when they're frustrated about it. And it's not just the information needs to be in the pool, there needs to be a shared understanding of it. So you need to explore all of the information until you can be sure that everybody is on the same page. And as we've seen in the video, the reason is because with more diverse input, we can take better decisions. And that actually is keeping us from scandals or from project failure or from any other of the problems which we have day to day in the corporate environment. But the problem is as well, not just that we need to figure out when to speak up, but we need to figure out as well to choose the right conversation. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to share a tool with you. We will have to unbundle a complex problem and choose the right conversation. Choose the conversation if it's about the content, a pattern, or the relationship. And we call that CPR in crucial conversations. So content is a single instant of a problem. The action or its immediate consequences are the problem. As an example, if I, for example, give one of my team members feedback, you've been late, that is content. That's a one-off, the person's been late. You know, that's a content problem. It is a completely different discussion when I'm saying the last 3 times you've been late. It sounds like a nuance, but if we talk content, one-off, or if we talk pattern, that's a different discussion to be had. And then finally comes something extremely important, and unfortunately something which more often than not we shy away from. And that is, how is the problem affecting the working relationship? For example, is the trust suffering, or is our competence or the competence of the other person in question? And I'll explain a little bit more on the, wait a second, in a minute, and you don't have a toolkit. So I'm sharing here the problem, which I want all of you to read, and I would have given that to you again for group work. But please now read, all of you, in 2 minutes, this case here. It's a real problem. Has everybody read it? Please speak out with if not. Okay. Then I want us now to come back to the discussion here. As we can put you in groups, please again use the chat function. And I want you to put in the chat function, from the case you remember, what is the content? What is the pattern? What is the relationship? And feel free to use the chat function or speaking out. And I'm going to share it in a minute again, why you think it's content or pattern or whatever. So let me share again my Word document here again. And now please use the chat function to enter which one of these problems would be the content, pattern, and relationship problem. Okay? And as I'm sharing my screen, unfortunately, I can't see anything in the chat function. So I need to rely on Costas to tell me and to read to me what everybody is answering here.
Okay.
And feel free to speak up as well. Do we get answers?
Not yet.
Okay.
But people also have the possibility to talk over the microphone if they want.
Please do. Exactly. So if nobody is writing yet, let's pick that apart here.
Lazarus has answered. Okay. We have some answers. The last minute report is part of the content.
If you please, Costas, I think that the content is the last minute report, the request for last minute report, while the pattern is something that the boss or someone who's you know, that give us the orders has already done this before many times. So this is the pattern. We usually have last minute cases that we must address before leaving the work, and this is something that delay us from you know, leaving the work. So the relationship, as for relationship, I think that it is the connection that you have with your boss, right? That this is that you think that because the boss asks you to do the report, you cannot deny it. This is the relationship, in my point of view.
Very good. Other opinion or additional opinions to that? Thank you,
Yeah.
Lazarus.
So we have from Konstantinos Stegu, the pattern is the accustomed to asking such kind of reports, often a last minute request. From Achilleas, the relationship is the lack of respect, non-inclusive mindset. From Alexandros, we have the content, doing things outside of your role and also doing it over other things that you should do. We're getting more and more answers. Nice. George is saying that since it's a repeatable action, it is more pattern. It can be a relationship as the lack of planning from the manager.
Very good. Thank you all for your input here. There is one thing which I'm missing here, and what would that be? To top it all off, you don't believe the report will provide the information they really need. Is that a problem? And what kind of a problem is that?
So the person, let's say the person writing the report believes that this will not add any value. In a normal, let's say, relationship, this would be the person should clearly speak up about it, and because it would be a waste of, let's say, time, and also he has other things to do, so he's wasting time on something that he believes it's not adding value.
Yes, it's definitely wasting time, and it is a relationship problem that you feel you can't say something so important to your boss, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, like, there was very, very good input, and let me just go here. So practically, sorry, that's an other case, so we're not going here. But now, let me just go back to that one here. So to repeat, there are content issues, they're usually one-off. So whenever we see a word or we hear the situation like accustomed to, that points to a pattern. Whenever we see often, that points to a pattern. And then when we see situations where there are emotions coming in, like you don't feel you can, you don't dare, you're afraid, you don't want to do what you think is right, that really, really points at relationship issues. The interesting part, let me just go here, is that most of the time we actually talk about content. We so often talk about content when in reality it is another problem. And that is what we mean by choosing the right conversation. And the problem why this is so dangerous is you do finally speak up, but the real problem is not addressed. Let's take, for example, the situation with the manager in the first video. Let's assume the project manager speaks up and says, yeah, the deadline is unrealistic. Can we please, like come back to the old deadline? And they even find some kind of a compromise. But there is now a distrust between the project manager and her manager, because she feels, oh my God, I need to hedge in future, or oh my God, I can't openly discuss with her, or this could happen again. That doesn't really solve the problem. It solves the one-off, but not the longer term. So relationship in particular is something which we hardly ever discuss, and it is probably the most important. But let us go back a little bit here, and oh, well, it already says the answer here. So we can't do that game, because usually what we are doing is in the training is a little bit of practice, where we say, pick the right one. Is it a content or a pattern one? And the question is, of course, so what would you talk about? But let me go back here to an open discussion here to everyone. I really would like to hear from you. Do you have any, and keep it anonymous, but do you have any relationship issues in your work environment? And do you feel comfortable talking about them? And feel free to use the chat function, because that is one of the tricky ones, which I really, really feel we should dare to have more often. And if you don't have these relationship issues, oh yeah, we have something here on chat. More than many. Okay. And sometimes the situation. Yes, you go, Kostas.
Yes, sorry. From George, we have a positive message that he has sometimes the situation, but it's improving.
Yeah. And again, I mean, like, it's work. Sometimes we feel, oh my God, we let it go. But that is what we define as staying stuck. For example, you have a team, a colleague, who repeatedly doesn't deliver on the deadline, and then he needs to deliver into your project, and it's once and it is twice, etc. The problem doesn't go away, and you sometimes think it's not worth it. What will you do as an action with that colleague? So a colleague doesn't deliver on the deadline, you can't rely on him. What will happen? Most likely, you will not work with the colleague again. You'll find workarounds. You'll find somebody else to help you. And the problem is that doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't help the colleague to realize the consequences. He's seen as somebody unreliable, and you don't want to work with him anymore. You will either have to do it yourself or have to burden somebody else for it. The problem is that very often we evade the discussion and create workarounds. Workarounds, however, are not the solution. They just make the problem stay. Theos, that's an interesting point. So you're saying if you are comfortable discussing on relationships, you can turn it into a process issue, and that helps. So you discuss relationships as part of the process. Oh, well done. So set up a process to hear both sides, set up the dialogue practically. Do I hear you correctly, Theos?
Yes, that's it. And you can even set up, like, if you have change requests that are coming through email or telephone, you can set up a process to evaluate change requests, see the impacts, and then agree on a way forward, which is not always what is asked for. So you can work around things like that.
I don't like the word workaround, but I really like your advice. So practically what you're saying is instead of relying on our own personal courage, you just set up a process so these things are being discussed. That would be excellent. Because again, it takes effort. Every time we have a crucial conversation, it takes effort and courage for us to reach out and have it. So if you do as Theos proposes, create a process around it, you make that as part of the process, and that is less burdensome and less risky for the individual. So it's a really, really good advice, and I wouldn't call it a workaround. I would call it a solution to create a better dialogue culture. Very good. Cool. Let us continue. We only have 10 minutes to go, and I still have a little bit to share here. But thank you so much for all your discussion. I really appreciate your comments and everything. So let us now watch how the project manager we saw early on does step up to the conversation. And I want you to now observe, because you learned the CPR tool, I want you to observe what conversation does she choose to hold and what does she do well. So while watching it, feel free to use the chat function and enter there when you see this is content and what it is, or this is pattern and so on. And afterwards, feel free to really give your opinion. What does she do well and what can we take on from her example? Okay, so here we go.
I said you're the best person for this job. I said you could get things done in tight timelines.
I can see that we're in a tight spot. I don't want to disappoint the leadership team any more than you do. And I want you to know that I am committed to getting things done. But I also want to make realistic goals. And probably more important than that, I want to make sure that we have a relationship where we can openly bring our concerns to the table.
Of course, Anya. But when leadership wants something done, we have to deliver. And the commitment's been made because of the estimates I gave. There's a lot of pressure on us.
I totally get it. You are under a lot of pressure, but I think it's that commitment that concerns me. You asked me to lead this project, and I made a timeline, and before I could even bring it to you, you've made a commitment to some other team without even talking to me, which makes me feel like I'm not even part of the team and that maybe you don't trust me. And then when I push back, your response made me feel like if I say anything contrary, you think I'm not a team player. But maybe I'm completely misinterpreting. So let me know if you have different intentions.
Okay, I hear you. And it's a frustrating situation. I guess I put you in this position that I was pushed into, but I don't know what else to do. Commitments have been made.
May I suggest that in the future, we discuss things together before the deadlines are finalized?
Yeah, that sounds fair. We need to figure out what to do in this situation.
Yeah, and I would love to discuss that, but I can't help feeling like we need to revisit the plan rather than risk the project just falling apart down the road.
Okay, now let me just go back here to the discussion. What did Anya, the project manager, discuss? What kind of problems did she talk about? And feel free to put it in the chat function. And what did you notice that she did well, or what did she do not so well? Ah, here we go. I do see the chats coming up. Ah, Theos, pure relationship discussion, is it? Okay, and here before we had, she's now explaining the content. So number one, no, it's not a pure relationship discussion, but you're right, that was the biggest part of it. But unrealistic goals were content in this case, because I just saw the one-off, but yeah. Okay. Starting from constant, then
Katja,
scaling to relationship. Mhm.
If you please, I
Yes.
will agree with Achilleas. He's starting from, I think that she's starting from the pattern, then she explained the content, and then she arguing with her about the relationship that they as a team have with the management. This is, I think, this is the pattern of their discussion.
Okay. And again, the biggest part indeed was the relationship. There were two things about the relationship. So what were the two things about the relationship she was discussing? And then yes, at some point she apologized. She didn't apologize quite. She said, if I'm interpreting something differently or wrong, tell me. So it's not quite apologies. It's like, if I have misunderstood, then I apologize. Why did she do that, you think? It's actually to not create confrontation, but to invite the other person to give her perspective. So she laid out her impression, but she said, if I'm seeing it wrong, then I apologize. Yeah, it's to smoothen the discussion and to invite the other perspective. That's extremely important to have dialogue. Okay, but let's go back to the relationship discussion. Which relationship discussions did you hear here concretely? And one time she actually says, I want a relationship where I feel I can say my own opinion and not feel that you're pushing me to do what you want. I think more or less this is what she said. So that's one part. And the other part is, I want in future, and that's kind of like more probably process, in future at least, I want you to talk with me first before you do the commitment. So it's kind of like process, or rather content, but as well relationship, because it has to do with the trust and the competency. Okay. So Theos, I need more communication. What is it?
I think that George answered your previous question with this
the whole
comment.
discussion, I think it was a scream for communication throughout
Yes.
the project, right?
Exactly. So, and that's why it's so important, you know, have that discussion early on, speak up early on. Otherwise, you go down a pattern. If Anya would have stayed silent in this moment at the beginning, the project and the relationship would have gone downhill. So do not let it go there. Okay. Time is just always running out, and it is running out for us as well. But I really want to thank you for your time and for your contributions and ideas. I very much appreciate it, and I'm very happy to connect with you on LinkedIn and to answer any questions which you may have about difficult conversations.
Thank you very much, Katja. We really enjoyed this event. Not working properly. I think it was quite interactive, and I think everyone has taken something as food for thought. And we really thank you, and also the attendants for their participation.
I definitely do too, and I hope we stay in touch. It was a pleasure meeting you all, some of you only by chat, but maybe in future by video.
Thank you very much, Katja.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So So I think that we should close.
Close the
We should
meeting.
leave the
Yeah.
meet. Yeah, because
I said it at the beginning of the meeting that we will send the PDUs and the YouTube link through an email, separate email in the coming days. And yeah.
Okay, with that, I'm going. Dinner time.
Yeah.